Hello and welcome to the NDTV GST Conclave. It's now time for the moment you've all been waiting for. On the hot seat, ladies and gentlemen, arguably the second most popular person in our country right now. I say second only because I'm leaving the Prime Minister and her boss above her. Can we have a warm round of applause as we welcome to the NDTV GST Conclave India's Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman. Ma'am, welcome. This is the NDTV GST Conclave, and we've got people cutting across industry sectors and many of the Aam Aadmi itching and waiting. And I have a list of people waiting to ask you questions that extends beyond the number of chairs in this room. So thank you so much for taking out time. Industry, market watchers, economists, pundits, they all wait, Madam Finance Minister, for what is described as Big Bang reform. And that always often seems an endless wait. And then suddenly, almost without adequate warning and quite unexpectedly, reform which seemed very difficult to deliver because consensus was extremely difficult to achieve is delivered. It's there on the plate. Everyone's celebrating. This is being called a second Deepavali, which is what the Prime Minister wanted as well. And people are wondering, how did we do it? Is it a crisis that prompts massive reform in a country like India, that's just when everybody rallies to try and deliver? It happened at the time of Dr. Manmohan Singh. It's happened now. Big Bang reform, does it only get delivered when there are massive headwinds staring at us? Ma'am, welcome. That's your mic. And can we have a round of applause before the Finance Minister answers the question? Thank you.
Well, this one was in the making for almost 1.5 years. You had an election in between, and then soon after Prime Minister took charge for the third time, he did call me once and asked me if I'm working on GST. I said, yes, I've started. And that was much before the last GST Council meeting, which was held in Rajasthan. And once again, I suppose, when we were preparing the budget this time, when the major announcement about income tax happened, even then he sort of once reminded me, saying, are you doing something on GST? Yes, I assured him even then. Then it was around May when I thought I had a worthy pack of reform measures that I could go to the PM and sort of brief him about it, saying this is what I have got as a major proposal, and the way in which it can work is that the centre can give it as a proposal to the council itself. So that's how it happened. So it wasn't as if the crisis was on us because of the tariff measures, but this has been some time in the works.
Ma'am, the last time you delivered something which was quite as emphatic and brought India closer to global benchmarks is when you dramatically reduced the corporate tax rates in the country. And at that time, it didn't quite pan out the way you would have imagined for factors completely beyond your control. There was COVID, industry investment didn't quite take off in the way that you'd calculated. How confident are you that this time round, the estimates or the hope that you have with the reduction in GST rates will actually get passed on to consumers and lead to a virtuous cycle of consumption which ultimately spurs the growth rate of the Indian economy, madam?
I'm very confident. And I say this because I have complete trust on our industry and on our traders. Because I think people know, because after all, industry or traders themselves are consumers as well. So when they know that across the board, rates have been brought down, and I've said this several times before, the guiding principles were for me looking at those which are daily consumption items for all Indian citizens, particularly for the middle class and the poor people, and then that which is aspirational items for the middle class, looking at farmers for their inputs, MSMEs because they are going to have to drive this Indian economy. Already they are about 40% in the engineering sector and so on. So we have looked at all these, I've mentioned 4, the 5th being those which are very critical for the Indian economy at large. So these 5 filters were the one with which I looked at rate rationalization. So I'm of the impression that 140 crore Indians will have one or the other thing touching them from 22nd September, where they will see that the government's taxation reduction has come through. Government meaning the GST councils. So I'm very confident, because if it touches 140 crore people and it is not one section here, one section there, the persons who have got to pass the tax forward to the consumer are all consumers themselves in the first place. So it will have to get transferred.
At the NDTV GST Conclave, we had the Finance Minister of Punjab, we had the Finance Minister of Jharkhand. They were engaging with ministers from the BJP ruled states, and their argument was that their apprehension is that this impacts the compensation that they get. And as was the argument when the GST reform was brought in the first instance, they're hoping that the government can do more than you've said at the moment in terms of ensuring that the revenue that accrues to the states does not go down on account of the reforms that you've brought.
You're right in a way, but I would like to rephrase what you've said, just so that there's clarity. The first thing I did after coming out of this very crucial council meeting was to thank every one of the ministers who came from various different parties, various different states and so on, because but for everybody consenting, this wouldn't have come
Was
through.
it an acrimonious meeting, lots of dishum or not really?
No, not at all acrimonious. But of course there were rounds and rounds of putting everyone's views forward, and the council is quite used to that kind of a discussion going around in circles and not moving forward, but sometimes it does move forward. So that's one thing. But let's have some fundamental facts in our mind. The union's proposal going to this council was not opposed by anybody. And this they said even before coming to the GST council. They said, we are in favor of the rate rationalization. This is a people-friendly proposal. This will affect positively all citizens of the country. To be fair to them, they all agreed on that. And where is the difference then? The difference is when they started speaking about what if my revenues go down? Who's going to give a protection? That's where the differences lie. So let's understand, to be fair to everybody, they were in favor of the proposal. They wanted people to get the benefit of rate reduction. That is one. Second, I've told you the differences as regards of it. The third one is about the question or the way in which you put the question forward. They were worried about the compensation. There's no compensation now. From 2022, no compensation is there. The cess in the name of compensation, cess that is getting collected, is going to repay the loan that was taken during COVID. So compensation to the states has already stopped as of June 30th, 2022. So compensation loss is not the issue. Revenue coming down is the issue, on which difference of opinion prevailed. And in that, my view was, and also some of the commentators outside were suggesting that states' revenues will come down. I would like to do a correction using this platform. In the GST Council, all of us are there together. I'm not a donor and states are not donies. We are sitting there saying we'll have to collect the GST, and the better efficient collection results in good collection totally, and therefore all of us can benefit from it. But if the collections come down, all our efficiencies will have to be improved so that evasions are controlled and we actually collect everything that we need to collect. It's not as if the center is sitting there with a huge big suitcase next to me that I can give money if the GST is not efficient in its collection. I'm equally the person who's going, or the center is equally going to lose revenue if the states are losing revenue. So in general, my approach is this GST Council and the nature of the council will have to be understood by everybody. Center versus state is not the point. All of us are together in it, and if states lose, I also lose. All of us will have to devise a way to improve collection.
One of NDTV's most iconic shows was We the People, and the idea really is to get we the people to ask questions to those in power. So I'll turn this now into a town hall format. We've got many doyens of Indian industry. We've got lots of people across sectors here as well. And I'll start with Rajiv Memani. Chief of Ernst & Young in India, President this year of the CII, Confederation of Indian Industry. We'll get him to ask the first question. We've got many stars of Indian television and business journalism here. They'll be asking questions as well. Ma'am hasn't asked even once, what question will you ask me? And I have no idea what people are going to ask either. So do applaud the Finance Minister for that as well. Thank you, ma'am. Here, Rajiv ji.
Thank you very much, ma'am. Reduction in corporate tax rate, reduction in personal tax, modification of the new Income Tax Act, and this one probably the most transformational. So I do want, India today has got one of the most competitive tax regimes as compared to most countries which have similar economic activity. So on behalf of industry, first let me just thank you profusely for making this happen. I think this is really it really reposes the faith, as you rightly said, on industry and also the trust that you have put in. And the beauty of this is, ma'am, at least the way I see it, is it's not just rate reduction, but the clarity with which you have brought two rates, the structural reforms that have been done, and the speed which it has come and the way you have rolled it out is
you
really
seem
fantastic.
Quite surprised with the speed, Mr. Mani.
I think everyone is surprised, because this touches so many things. So I'm sure a lot of work would have done, because every one product rolls into the other product.
What else would you like to see happen with such speed?
No, so let me first finish. And ma'am, you've not. I have two questions before Rahul interrupts me or needles me. The first one is, you've not brought in the anti-profiteering clause, at least not till now. And you did mention that you have a lot of faith in industry. I would really want you to articulate, if you can, what you would want from industry. This is a great platform, and I think it'll be great to get your perspective on that. The second is, as compensation cess gradually phases out, did you want to time this around the fact that when compensation cess is also phasing out, so that at least the impact on states will be much lesser, because the amount of compensation cess that was being collected was not going to states. It was mainly center using that money to repay the loans. And to some extent, where the rates haven't moved back, that money will now be available for distribution to states as well. So I just wanted to ask you that question.
On the compensation, I want a bit of a clarity. Is it timed with the compensation? Yeah, in somewhat. Are you timing it around the compensation cess? Yes and no. Yes, because June 30th, 2022, compensation collection for the purpose of compensating the states ended. It had to be extended because in 2020 and partly 21, we couldn't give the states the compensation because we couldn't collect enough revenue. We had to borrow, and in order to pay the borrowing back, we had to extend the collection. Now, at least in 2 GST Council meetings earlier, we had already said that, first of all, extension was till 31st March 2026, by which time it was assessed that we would be able to repay the loan. Now, sometime 2 GST councils before Rajasthan itself, we had said GST compensation collection for the sake of paying back loan would probably end even earlier than March 2026. Subsequent to Rajasthan, our assessment gave us the feeling that probably we'll end it this calendar year itself and not wait till 26. And therefore, if this calendar year we collect as much as we need to repay the loan, we had no business to collect it even one day after that. So we needed to get the clearance from the council that post repaying the cess, what do we do? Which means that is why you had a GOM looking at it, and also then the rate rationalization GOM was also working. to the limited purpose of decision on the compensation cess, the GOM on compensation cess decided, but what to do about the money which was collected in the name of cess? Would it be replowed? Would it be reapplied? All that was to become a part of the rate rationalization GOM. So that decision was put to the GOM looking at rate rationalization. So that is why it had to be time somewhere to keep in mind that by the time the GST compensation cess comes to an end, we should know what happens to those items on which the cess was being levied. Therefore, we had to keep it somewhere closer to this date.
Okay, we'll take more questions. I've got Dr. Naresh Trehan here, one of India's most iconic, well-known doctors. Doc, your question for the Finance Minister.
So first of all, Honorable Finance Minister, I can only echo a big thank for the public in accessing healthcare by your very bold move.
Thank you.
So the question basically is right now that we have benefited majorly from the GST on insurance premiums going, because that made it very expensive for people on top of what was already their cost. So affordability for insurance will definitely increase, and more people we are expecting to come in the insured net. Second, you have taken away the GST on life-saving drugs, and also generally on pharmaceuticals, there's been reduced from 12 to 18% to 5%. So this is a big help in the sense it will reduce our cost of acquisition, and then we should be able to pass it on to the patient and the families. The third thing is that it also helps us to create more hospitals and the employment that we do is about 5 to 6 persons or healthcare workers per bed that we create. We need 1.8 million more beds in the next 10 to 15 years for India. So it can essentially create jobs for 10 to 15 million people as we move forward. So all this will help us to move forward. What I can request for the future is in your GST reform 3.0, that we still don't get a set-off on the GST that we pay, unlike most other sectors. That has been a long-standing request to you, that you should, maybe you can look at it. You've already done enough, but maybe in a subsequent move, if that is, we can get the set-off, it'll help us to even keep the cost under control. As it is, the cost of healthcare delivery in India, comparable to the rest of the world, or even better in some cases, is 1/10 to 1/5 of what is the world can offer. So we are in good shape as far as our delivery system is concerned. Whatever help comes your way should be passed on to the public so that more and more people can access us. Thank you very much for this whole thing, and my request stays pending. Thank you.
Quite literally, Doc ka dil mange more.
Diagnostic equipments have also come down.
Yes, I didn't have like every.
I understand.
Okay, so I've got Chandrajit Banerjee, Director General at CII. He'll ask the next question. I have a question for you, CP, as you ask your question to the Finance Minister, which is essentially this. The fact that when Madam Finance Minister made the big reduction in corporate taxation, one of the hopes you had and others had, what this would lead to a capex cycle, that investments would happen. And frankly, for various reasons which have been discussed ad nauseum, it didn't happen. How are you working with India Inc. and all the companies you constantly talk to towards ensuring what the Finance Minister has been saying constantly, that starting the 22nd of September itself, the entire benefit should be passed on? Because yes, prices are rising, there is inflation, input costs are going up. So how do you ensure that companies don't say a part of it needs to be offset against our own input prices, and therefore we can't pass it all on to the customer? So first respond to my question and then your question to the Finance Minister.
First, I will want to also join in congratulating the Honorable Finance Minister for GST 2.0, ma'am. Thank you very much. To respond to Rahul, ma'am, you know that industry has pledged, even in the panels preceding this important session, industry after industry, sectors after sectors were pledging that it would benefit the industry if they pass it on to the consumer. And as you also said a little while ago, that every industry is also a consumer. So we see that happening. We see that happening definitely, Rahul. And of course, institutions like ours will have to play a vital role in seeing that the benefits are passed down to the consumer. Ma'am, having said that, GST 2.0 is being celebrated. You also talked about how you did it. Easy it was, 8 years, and we have done it once again. You didn't talk about what difficulties you faced. And is it that there were no difficulties? What went on in those closed rooms?
Because we had a very acrimonious debate on the stage between the finance ministers, and yet so quickly on day one itself, you came out and said it's all done. There was that late evening press conference. There was talk in Delhi, I'm sure Mr. Banerjee and Rajiv and everybody heard that this could go over to a third day, because initially the apprehension was that consensus would be difficult to find.
So something which is not yet in the public domain, ma'am, in terms of the difficulties and the navigations that you had to do to make this really happen, it wouldn't have been so easy.
No, I think to be fair to the finance ministers, they were all on board about the rate rationalization and the entire package which the union government gave. At no point in time there was acrimony. But certainly the states were repeating the argument, and some of them more than 2 times, let us say, about what happens when our revenue goes down. So once it was clear that all of us are on the same page about the proposal per se, there was no need on that score to talk anymore. But on the question of revenues going down, who's going to fill it all up and all that, I said I'm willing to sit the next day, because anyway, it was scheduled, the council meeting was scheduled for 2 days. But I think gradually people realized that citizens are waiting to hear that the council has come out saying, yes, we agree for the rate reduction, and issues of how revenue dipping should be taken care of are not that which the people are waiting for. I mean, this was not said in so many words, but it could be sensed in the House. So to be fair to the state's finance ministers, having said their piece more than once, even those states who thought this will result in a dip in their revenue, as much as I kept saying my revenue also would dip, I think they all saw the point and agreed.
Nobody wants to stand in the way of giving a benefit to the Aam Aadmi, and therefore...
That's right. So everyone came around. So
it's all about votes at the end. As much as it is about the economy, it's about votes. So there's a lot of talk, Madam Finance Minister, about whether this spurs consumption and whether it spurs just behaviorally consumers going out and buying more. So I've got Peruz Kambata, he runs Rasna. Does this get people to buy? You would naturally hope more Rasna, but do you have like a arithmetic conversion for this because of the reduction in GST across different categories? How do you see this impact India's consumption story, which over several quarters hasn't been quite as inspiring as the finance minister and everyone else would like it to be?
First, I would also like in thanking you, because what you have done for the food sector is unimaginable. You actually brought the whole food sector at 5%. And all the earlier issues of classification are gone with one stroke, and nobody was expecting. I was expecting lot P to be the 18, forget 40, everything is in the 5. And the direct benefit is not only to the consumer. Consumer obviously is going to benefit because we have pledged, I pledged in the earlier session, we are going to give more than the benefit. Because I'll tell you why we want to give.
How will you give more than the benefit?
Because as it is, we are always looking at giving better to the consumer in terms of values. And I do believe that this is going to have a ripple effect on the economy. Prices are going to come down. As it is, I am seeing some prices going down. So coupled with that, and the fact that we also would like to rationalize our retail margins and the benefit of the taxes GST on the retail margins, if you calculate, it will be slightly better we will be able to give than what has come to us. So this is my personal belief. Having said that, I think the major benefit is not to that. The major benefit is to the farmer back, because we buy at a better price from the farmer. The farmer gets a better price, and the farmer himself is the consumer. And the farmer consumes more of the same product. So I think it is the whole circle which I want to see. And the best benefit will come in the agri and the food and the dairy sector. So I would like to thank you very much for
What's
the
your
same.
question, sir?
And as regards questions, my question is more towards the need for, I somehow believe that the thing now we have to move is into procedural issues. And I still believe that everything goes to a court. And I still believe that we need an alternate dispute ADR mechanism at the ground level. And why I'm saying it is important is you like it or
reduce
not.
GST procedures.
Yes,
in terms
I
of
think now see,
implementation. So you want
we
to speak a
always
bit
want
about that.
more.
You're also
So I do believe that ADR and procedure is something, of course, this GST 2 does take care of it to an extent, but I think this is something now when you are doing so much for taxes,
Okay,
I want something to be more done on this. And one thing
Ma'am,
is,
if you keep
on
questions
old cases,
shorter.
on ADR, we are talking of the old cases. That old cases, legacy cases, if we can find a quicker samadhan, procedure ADR is my question, how will you go to it?
Okay.
That's okay. I've heard him.
She's saying this is good feedback in any case, and therefore now we have to see what we can do to try and reduce procedures. We've got the man who runs Amul, Jayan Mehta, is here. Can I get Mr. Mehta to ask the next question? Just keep your questions short so we can take as many questions as possible. Go for it, sir.
Thank you so much, ma'am. All our lives we heard one very important quote or a phrase. The only thing certain in life is death and taxes. I'm now worried for the 1.5 billion Indians because taxes definitely are now out of the picture. Direct tax and the indirect tax, both you have simplified so much. And hearing Dr. Trehan, our life is also in safe hands. On behalf of all the milk producers of the country, and there are as many as 80 million farmers associated with dairy in this country, we thank you and the Honorable Prime Minister for this wonderful initiative. As Piruz told, it is definitely going to help all the milk producers, and particularly, ma'am, all the consumers are primarily the women. So through your hands, this decision, which is helping women milk producers and women consumers, is going to be a landmark decision. Usually, this is not the time I would have asked any question because आपने सब कुछ दे दिया है. But since these marks for class participation, I may just make a small request.
Blame me. Yes, go on. Get that.
Ma'am, milk is the largest agricultural crop of India. But the income from milk is not exempt from taxation. So as India moves towards White Revolution 2.0, more and more women are actually putting their efforts into increasing the milk production. If their incomes are going above the 12 lakh slab that you announced this year, it would really benefit if you are able to actually treat milk now as an agricultural crop and with your wisdom benefit large number of women milk producers in the coming decades. Thank you so much.
Ma'am is taking some of this just as feedback because you can't possibly expect her to make tax policy on including or excluding new items. I saw Sanjeev Bikhchandani, and there's a lot of talk about the impact this has potentially on employment, jobs. So from your lens, Sanjeev, and given everything that you've done, your question to the finance minister and whether you see a reduction in GST rates potentially having a ripple effect on job creation and employment.
Now, I think anything that simplifies and makes it less complex is great. It makes it easier to do business. And therefore, this simplification of slabs is great. I think anything that reduces costs, whether input costs or for the consumer, is great because that will give a boost to demand and therefore growth. And as the companies grow, they'll employ more people. I've spoken to several startups in the last 2 days. The only thing that told me was that यार हमारा आउटपुट पे टैक्स कम हो गया है बट इनपुट पे तो उतना ही है तो I now have to apply for input tax credit refund and that may have complexities we don't know about, so they are still grappling with that.
Okay, ma'am, there are two trends that are playing out parallelly at this time. You've got some impetus in the economy on account of the GST rate cuts that you've delivered, and then there is the headwind that plays itself out around American President Donald Trump and the tariff wave that he's sending towards India. And the economy, as you know well, is so much about animal spirits and how people feel, certainty, predictability, investment cycles. Do you think some of the cheer that you're trying to spread around Diwali is frankly just getting negated by factors so far across which you can't control and completely unpredictable in terms of when they get resolved, how they get resolved, and if they get resolved?
See, the GST reform was not triggered by the tariff. As I said, it was in the making. One. Second, the US tariff hits those exporters who export to many countries in the world and also to the US. Surely, I'm not undermining the impact of a 50% tariff, but it hits exporters who are exposed to the US, who have a market access and who export to US. In fact, I've been saying that many of these exporters were getting hit by the 50% tariff. Government is doing some kind of a work to get something so that we can, support them in some form or the other. But the inputs to making that policy or a scheme or designing a scheme will also depend on those hit by the 50% tariff and telling us to what extent they are exposed and what is the actual loss or damage because of the 50%. So by industry, first of all, we need to have an assessment of those who are exporting to the US and to what extent of their total exports and what is the hit. That is
when do you
also
hope to have this package ready?
That will be a vital input for making the package. But even otherwise, some inputs have been coming and government is working.
But it's not just about companies exporting to the United States. So you're also trying so hard to attract foreign direct investment into India. And as companies look at setting manufacturing bases up, and so many were thinking about it, work was in the pipeline. Now when the American president holds this tariff sword over their heads, are you concerned that this potentially jeopardizes, impacts the prospects of long-term foreign direct investment coming into the India story? Because I don't want to take any one company and single that out, but so many companies may have scaled up their manufacturing in India in the hope of exporting to the US and elsewhere. Now they wonder, hey, just let's wait it out. Let's see what happens.
We will, that possibility exists. But from our side, we are keeping all the doors open, if I can use that expression. The diplomatic teams are engaging with the US. The trade negotiations can still go on. So we don't, from our side, we are not making anything difficult for others, one. And second, FDI has also come through various other routes. They come through investment, wealth funds, sovereign wealth funds. They also come through various other destinations from where funds are managed. So I'm not saying this is not going to have a bearing. It will have a bearing, but we are trying to offset it. We are not engaging with other countries, other FDI sources. So work is on. I can assure that much.
Okay. We'll take some questions from the NDTV team as well. I've got Vasudha Venugopal. She's the editor for politics at NDTV. She'll take the next question. Go for it, Vasudha.
Thank you, Rahul. Ma'am, I'm going to ask you a political question and about a state that we both come from, Tamil Nadu. You were in Tamil Nadu recently, and I want to understand from you, what are the prospects of the BJP-AIDMK alliance? And considering that there have been voices from the AIDMK, Sengotian specifically, do you see that impacting the prospects of the AIDMK-BJP alliance?
Well, post the Lok Sabha election, BJP has been very keen to get back its NDA alliance to strength. And therefore, every effort was made to get all the allies back. And there is one clear unanimity among all members of the NDA alliance, and to a large extent the people of Tamil Nadu, that DMK should not come back to power in 26. Why is that unanimity? Because of the extent to which things are going on in Tamil Nadu about not just the liquor policy, but also the drugs which have gotten into the society. Tamil Nadu has never seen this kind of a situation. And above all, it is also very clear that even the DMK is far removed from its own ideology. If you want to believe that its own ideology was social justice, which is what they normally say, We are building a society which is going to have social, equanimity. Everybody is going to be equal and people are not going to be treated up and down or higher or lower and so on. Tamil Nadu has seen one of the highest of honor killings. Villages which are dominated by scheduled castes, for instance, have had unbelievable crime. If I can tell you here that in one particular village where SCs are the majority, from the drinking water source from where they take their domestic, for use in their homes, that was polluted with human excreta. And the government has not even till today taken concrete action against those who have done that. Similarly, in another one village, I think it's called Kallakurchi, spurious liquor has killed women and adults in the village. You don't have one solid action. They may say, yeah, we filed an FIR, we've done this. But concrete action is missing. And similar to what happened in that RG Car college, medical hospital come college. Tamil Nadu, Anna University had a similar attack on a woman student. And it so happens that the culprit was so closely associated with the first family ruling Tamil Nadu. So today there is near unanimity among people, among political parties. You may be in an alliance or you may be out of it. Clear understanding that another 5 years for Tamil Nadu with DMK is going to make the state go backwards. So that unanimity among the NDA members is also recognized, and all of us have come together on that score. I don't want to comment on the internal disturbances or whatever you may call of the ADMK. I'm sure they will resolve it for themselves.
Okay, I'll go to Tamanna Inamdar. She's the managing editor at NDTV Profit, and she's tracking the stock markets very closely. So Tamanna, here you go.
Ma'am, since we've started with the queue of the stock markets, I think the big question right now is why are stock markets not responding maybe with full fervor as they should to the GST cuts? They have been larger than expected across more areas than expected. There are many theories, but I wanted to know if you had any thoughts on this. Because if you look at the triple whammy of good news, income tax cuts, 7.8% on GDP, take that those who say dead economy, and then you have these GST cuts. Markets should be cheering. Do you have any thoughts on this?
Well, I think markets always react to so many different other factors as well. The global uncertainty is definitely dominating, and therefore we'll have to see. But I thought today, for instance, the market has actually done well. So,
Does it play on your mind when you're at work or once you're at home, the way markets are responding and the impact you would expect your announcement would have on the stock market versus what's actually happening?
No, I do observe the market, but I don't think I can measure the reforms based on the performance of the market. I would want the reforms to go down well within the country with our citizens. Markets are within the country, no doubt, but I would rather have that gain ground. So I watch the markets, but I don't think I'm very worried about immediate reaction from the market on these.
Does it lift or sink your mood? Just I'm psychologically kind of wondering.
On market-related matters, Rahul, no question will get any better answer from me.
That's true. Okay. As I said, your level of if this was appraisal cycle in corporate India, ma'am would have like rockstar appraisals because the popularity in a 360 appraisal would be extremely high. So Akhilesh Sharma has the next question. Go for it, Akhilesh.
नमस्ते मैम, अभी हम जब बात कर रहे हैं तो उपराष्ट्रपति चुनाव के लिए वोटों की गिनती हो रही है और जैसे आप जानती हैं कि अभी तक भारत को कभी कोई महिला उपराष्ट्रपति नहीं मिली। एक दूसरा चुनाव है जो बीजेपी के अध्यक्ष का है, काफ़ी लंबे समय से पेंडिंग है। बीजेपी को भी अभी तक कोई महिला अध्यक्ष नहीं मिली है। क्या समय आ गया कि बीजेपी को कोई महिला अध्यक्ष मिले?
That's the trickiest question that's come. Yes, ma'am. Would you like to be the new BJP president?
Whoever becomes the president of BJP, all of us will work under her or him. We are happy with that.
Do you think it is time that the BJP have a woman president?
I like the media which goes on asking about us, is it time for BJP? Is it time for the BJP to do this, that? BJP was the first party to give 33% reservation in every one of its organization down to the Panchayat to up to the national executive. And I'm a beneficiary of it. I've come into the national executive of BJP because there was reservation for women. So on women, BJP is never behind. And for that matter, the reservation bill, women's reservation bill, being the first one in the new parliament, is also because of BJP.
As we try and build out, ladies and gentlemen, a new NDTV, it's always good to look back at the past as well. And very interestingly, we have in the audience the former chief executive of NDTV, who happened to be here, madam, to moderate a session at another event which was taking place nearby. And because this was an NDTV event, Vikram Chandra couldn't help, and we invited him to come and just join us here. So Vikram, here you go. NDTV, the finance minister, your question next.
Thanks a lot, Rahul. It's interesting to be holding this mic after 7 years, but madam, it was great to get a chance to come here and talk to you. Big bang reforms in GST, ma'am, but of course when it comes to reform, dil mange more, and I know you're working on other next-gen reforms. So there's a lot of interest in what they are, which areas they will be covering, will it be deregulation, and will they also be big bang?
Well, I should also recall the number of times I've attended Vikram Chandra in NDTV, in his program, during those days when I was spokesperson. I do recall that now before you. Well, on reforms, there's no point in me listing out anything at all. Prime Minister Modi is known for reforms. Even during COVID, he didn't sit back and say we should take care of the people, vaccination and things, forget the economy. No, even that time we came up with several reform steps. And therefore, reform is never off the agenda. PM is always there saying push more, get more reforms done. So there will be a lot more. And from my ministry, I will continue to do the work that we need to do, whether it is disinvestment, whether you're looking at land monetization, asset monetization, all that will go on. Yes, on the financial and non-financial regulator, as I announced in the budget, there are 4 committees now, one headed by the Home Minister, one headed by the Defense Minister, and 2 others, one headed by the Chief Cabinet Secretary and one by the former Cabinet Secretary. So there are a lot of activities happening now to get those streamlined and to push forward with reforms. There will be a lot more action.
Thank you for that, Finance Minister. There are folks from the hotel and restaurant industry, right? So I just want to take a question from the folks from the restaurant industry. And go ahead, please. Introduce yourself and then ask your question.
Namaskar, Minister. My name is Rahul Singh. I'm the trustee for NRAI, which stands for the National Restaurant Association of India. It's the organized sector for the restaurants. We do contribute 2% to the GDP and one of the largest employers in the country. Question I'll come to. Just hold on. Okay. So just bringing myself there, right? So first, we want to thank you because the parantha debate is over, as we know. That is a big debate, that parantha should be taxed at whatever. No, I like both. It depends on the time of the day. The other is that, yes, we'll continue to employ a lot of people because AI can't, cook or serve for sure. So that's a good thing that we'll continue doing. There is only one request that we have, and it's kind of a question if it can be done that way. Our largest cost to our restaurant is actually 2 landlords. So one's the landlord, which is physical, which is the rent. The other is the Zomatos and the Swiggies, which are the digital landlords. And they charge us 18% tax, GST. We don't get an input tax for that. And we've not got input tax since 2017. So our request is, because that is more than the food cost, please do something about it. Make that part maybe 5%, at least when they charge us, because that's not being set off. And that, like Dr. Trehan said, that set off is important. So that's the request. The question is, we know constitutionally, liquor for human consumption is a state subject, and you just mentioned the friction, the state, one nation, one price. Can we bring liquor for human consumption in GST?
Liquor for human consumption sounds deeper than it actually is. But yes, Madam Finance Minister, why don't you respond on the issue of alcohol and on the issue subsequently of petroleum products? But Can
No,
liquor ever come under GST? That's the question.
That depends on the states. It's not for me to answer that. Liquor will have to depend on the states. I can't even comment on it. Yes, Rahul.
Okay.
on.
There's a gentleman from the Auto Dealers Association. They've got lots of pent-up inventory. So got deep discounts, pent-up industry, and he has a question also. So go on.
So, Madam Finance Minister, I'm Venkesh Gulati representing FADA, Federation of Automobile Dealer Association. So first, thank you. Compensation cess has been absolved or finished. And all the issues, legal compliances issues were major in dealers, which is over now. But it has created one more issue. So overall, the GST, all the OEMs, like you know, Mahindra has already started giving the post-GST price from today, even before 22nd, Audi and Skoda also. So as from the auto industry, we commit, we'll pass on everything. But one major thing with this reform, which has created an issue with the automobile dealers, which are working at paper-thin 3% margin, is the cess input, what is still left in the GST and ledger. So from 22nd onward, whatever cess input is left for a dealer will not be able to adjust as per our information as of today. There has been questions on the evening.
The question. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, so.
See, the only answer I can give at this stage is for you all to please look at the FAQs that we've put out for every sector. I think on the day we had the press meet, in fact, the media themselves were given about 75 pages as press release, because every question that a journalist might have in her or his mind can be answered. So over and above that, we put on the website FAQs addressing all the questions that might run in the minds of anybody who's a part of this GST. So I'm sure I would only refer to you at this moment to go back to the FAQ, see it. It has answers for every question.
You know, and while we do feel bad for automobile dealers because it's an awkward situation to be in, from the lens of the customer, it's not an unhappy situation, right? Because you've got deeper discounts than you ever will. And just linked to that, I think the executive director of Maruti Suzuki is here as well. So yes, go ahead and ask your question. And the question of passing on the benefits to the customer and your question to the finance minister. Go on. Okay.
Ma'am, honestly, you've done so much that it's now our time to respond. Obviously, it's a religion at Maruti, and I think our peer group within industry to pass on 100%. There is absolutely no doubt that a single paisa should be retained by the manufacturer. It's a gift from the government to the consumer of India. It's a consumer's day, should be passed on. Thanks. Of course, now it is for industry to respond. And in fact, we are now worried about investments. We might have to accelerate our capex cycle because the demand surge that might come, we want to be on the right side of the consumer and start producing.
Are you feeling a demand surge?
Yeah, in fact, we know the pulse of the customer. So we certainly will have a demand surge. The projection that we have given out is, for example, small cars had some structural issues. They were declining at about 6% per annum. From a -6, we think a swing to +10% growth. That is our initial projection. We may be surprised positively, we don't know. But certainly we are accelerating our new plants and investments in anticipation of more demand. And,
okay. Ma'am? Now, there are two things. One, of course, the fact that you'd want the companies like Maruti, the Mahindras, etc., to spend more on building capacities here. Then the fear that part of this production was meant for exports. And it comes back to that point that till the time the uncertainty around tariffs settles, they're sinking in this infrastructure spend without knowing fully whether they'll be able to export in a competitive fashion or not. So there is that, I mean, there's nothing you can do about it, but there is that factor which also plays its out simultaneously.
That may be so, but I quite appreciate Maruti's commitment to transfer or pass on the tax reduction to their consumer. And that is the spirit which I think the people of India are also expecting, because eventually you asked Maruti the question that do you see a surge? I'll give you one input from my side. much before, once the GST, union government's proposal, rate reduction were all now coming out in trickles, much before the GST Council met, so many industries called up to say, hey, would you please take this call sooner? Because those people who come to us are no longer ready to place an order. They're saying, likely there is a reduction, so we shall wait. So you're also getting a situation from the other side saying, surge, but before that they held back. So obviously a surge.
हमने भी wait किया है. I think lots of people here, I don't know if anybody is planning to buy a car, but many people decided to wait कि देख लेते हैं मैम क्या करती है फिर decide करते हैं. So can I just take some more questions from people? Ma'am, I have, in the economic survey, the chief economic advisor spoke about relooking investments from China. Now, given that the Prime Minister went there was a good meeting with Chinese President Xi Jinping, how do you as Finance Minister view the contentious issue of investment coming from China, the sectors where you currently have guardrails, and given what we're seeing with the United States and the slight thaw that we're seeing with Beijing, how do you see this play out in the weeks and months to come?
Well, I think it's important. We will have to be negotiating for greater market access to Indian products in China, if at all there is a trade talk. About investment, the PN3 guides us, the press note 3 guides us. It's also true that we very clearly said investments from neighborhood we're not entertaining, particularly during and immediately after the Galvan crisis. But the PN3 has also been made a bit flexible as regards domain experts, technicians who will have to come to complete projects which are already in the ground. Now, if projects are already on the ground and they're not getting completed because experts were not available, we had to that extent, allow experts to come. As regards investments, which is your specific question, are we flexing it? Are we making it easier? I think the concerned departments will have to talk about it and then come back to take a call on it.
Are you less wary than you were earlier, just philosophically and ideologically?
No, I would continue to be cautious.
Interesting. Vishnu Shom has a question for you. Vishnu.
That's not to deter any decision in favor.
No,
caution is a word.
Of course, absolutely.
Ma'am, I had the opportunity of meeting the Chinese ambassador yesterday. He spoke to a few journalists. And he's called for a fair, equitable business environment in India. We're in the midst of a reset in ties with China. I don't know if the word reset is accurate or not. Some suggest that it may be. Do you believe that, do you welcome greater Chinese involvement in our economy? And what about rare earths, which is found mention? Is that not critical for us to achieve our economic goals?
No, it is absolutely critical to achieve our economic goals, no doubt. And I would want to have trading relationship with every country, investments to be attracted from any country, no doubt. But I'm just getting into the detail, if you ask me one step more, get into the granular detail. These are my thoughts. I need greater market access as much as opening up my market for you, for anybody, for any country. In a way, isn't that the question of what negotiations with the US, with the EU is all about? Give us greater access and trade surplus. There are many countries which have trade surplus as against vis-a-vis United States. So we also have a huge deficit against China. So when you put India's interest on the top, there are aspects which have to be said and negotiated on. That's the point I'd like to highlight.
Okay, I said we'll give some of the leading voices of India Inc. an opportunity. I also want to move back and give some folks sitting towards the seats at the back the opportunity. Go on, please.
Firstly, ma'am, I'll take the opportunity to join all the senior dignitaries in thanking you for bringing us an early Diwali gift this year in the form of 2.0. The question is very quick. I'm personally a startup founder. I have benefited from the startup benefits that the government has prevailed personally because I have created a product company out of AI. But my question is very short and simple. Today's youth in India is now aspiring to make the tech giants now come out of India. And whilst there's a lot that we've already received in the 2.0, compliance is something where it's slightly on the heavier side. And with total number of startups that are coming up, and startup founders are always working on the thinnest of margins, is there something that we can expect in the coming times where towards the compliances and services side also the regimes can get slightly more compressed, so that we can probably think of not using foreign AIs and creating our own chat GPTs in India itself in the coming times to come?
When you say compliance, I don't know what you're referring to, because as many compliance-related issues that may pertain to me, central government, we are actively engaged with the stakeholders to say, tell us where you want to remove something, we are willing. Hasn't the last 2 terms of Prime Minister Modi seen so many archaic acts being removed, compliance conditions being removed? We are always on course for it. But the problem sometimes is, I'm not shifting the blame, startups are located somewhere in some state, because union government doesn't have its territory except for union territories which are known. But if the compliance pertains to a state regulation or a state law, that is for the respective states to deal with. That burdens you equally. I accept that point. But even states will have to take up this thing about making it easy for startups. We are still ready. As many as the issues that you'll draw to my attention, I will work on them. That will continue.
Ma'am, there was a question that somebody sent on social media. I want to ask you this. This is to do with real money gaming. The government brought a new law which bans real money gaming. And the question is on behavior. And we had the same question for you when you did the same with cryptocurrency. The government comes with an iron fist and comes out with a law. It doesn't really change youth behavior. A lot of those who are buying cryptocurrencies in India move some of those investments abroad through VPN. They still continue to trade. And a lot of the Web 3.0 companies feel they're having to move to Dubai, move elsewhere, but they're still trying to do the same thing. And a lot of that money is coming from India. The concern around real money gaming is the same, that while and there's a moral reason why you've done what you have, but it doesn't change behavior. And therefore, instead of Indian startup founders benefiting from the surge in real money gaming, the benefit just gets exported to somebody in some other geography who's making the same money with people who are based out of India. How do you look at this argument?
So it's for us, Rahul, to say we encourage money gaming at any cost. And even if citizens are calling up the PMO, sending emails to many of us, SMSs, WhatsApps, to saying my family is getting ruined, does the government care or not? And that is why, whether you recall my conversations on crypto, which you are doing now, or whether this one, we are not against the technology. We are not against the technology which builds up these games. That is why entertainment related games, online gaming, all that is fine. But when money is involved and betting comes into the place, or people are bidding money for greater game purposes, many families have lost their monies. And many middle-class families are saying, what's happening? Our children are playing it thinking it's free, and it is temptingly free to enter. And after that, you are unknowingly walking into a payments scheme of things. Families have really become very agitated and wanted government to take an action. We reflect the people's opinion. Money gamings are going outside of the country. Well, we are not against the technology or bringing in entertainment through digital games. But gambling or bidding for games through online is worrisome. And it's not just Government of India. Many states have already banned it. Why have they done it? So I think we'll have to draw some fine line somewhere.
Madam Finance Minister, we are out of time. This just so happens to have been my first broadcast at NDTV. And we're thinking about finding a special opportunity to come and do this first broadcast. I don't think we could have done anything more special. So on behalf of the NDTV team and on behalf of everyone who's joined us here, can we have a very warm round of applause for Union Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman for coming into this setting and for taking questions from we the people and from all of us, all of you who came here today to join this town hall. Thank you so much for taking our time. Thank you, Madam Finance Minister. Wish you a happy Diwali, a double Diwali, and before that, happy Navratras. And thank you for making it so special for everyone. Thank you, ma'am.